Have you ever felt overwhelmed and energetically drained by too many responsibilities? Have you ever hit a breaking point where overwhelmed and uncertainty reach a fever pitch and your business seems to be oscillating or even falling apart? Do you feel that you have risked so much, but yet there seems to be an unseen force holding you back from success that you predicted? My name is Taylor Thomas. I am the founder of Lead Up, an international community developing next generation of leadership. And I'm here, right, despite her natural and bubbly personality, Angie has suddenly dropped into a dark place where she couldn't sleep at night or even get up to face the day. Life became heavy. She lost her joy, and a pit of depression was her life. All changed when she discovered how to rise up without the use of pharmaceuticals, which resulted in a level of health and vitality she didn't even know existed in herself. For the past 25 years, she's been able to go be the go-to coach for world record holding athletes and entrepreneurs. Angie is on a mission to empower creative entrepreneurs and professionals to become high performing leaders so they can exceed their biggest business goals. Her community calls her Awesome Angie. And when you listen to her teach, you will be immediately recognize how much she honors her awesomeness and all those around her. And if you're ready for more inspiration, more personal power, and most of all, more fun, please welcome Awesome Angie.
Woo! Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that awesome opening. Proud to be here. This is awesome. Appreciate this.
Well, we're glad to have you. We're super excited for today's session. Before first, I have about a few questions I want to get today started with. Is that okay if I ask you a few questions?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So I'm excited to get these questions today. So my first question for you is, what inspired you to become an entrepreneur?
Entrepreneur. It's interesting because I grew up on a farm, a pig farm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very unique. You don't meet anyone that does that every day. And so I never knew, my dad never had a boss. I never saw him go into an office, and he ran his life. And so it was in my blood from childhood. And, and my mom was a school teacher. So I saw her go off to a job all the time, but my dad was always there. And when I graduated college, that was my goal is I can work for a few years, like an apprentice, learn the tricks of the trade. I've got the knowledge now, but let's get some experience. But my goal was to start my own business, get about 3 years of training, and then let's go start my own thing. And that's what I did. However, along the way, there were a lot, like with anything with entrepreneurship, there were a lot of bumps, but that's essentially what got me into entrepreneurship. It's just in my blood.
Yeah, you kind of born into it. You've seen your father working on a pig farm, being able to kind of grow into seeing the entrepreneurship journey for yourself. That's awesome. So I have another question. What inspired you to get started with helping people get unstuck and becoming unstoppable in their business and life?
It's my mission. So when I started my own business, I was having a trouble with the industry I was in, and I was searching, and I found another industry that was heavy in personal development, which led me on this wonderful path of learning all these wonderful things on the personal development side, which I never was exposed to before. And I got married, had our first and only son. And that's when, because I was always this bubbly, upbeat, we were rocking it in business. Me and my husband, we had this really great business going on. I ended up having my child and immediately dropped into that postpartum depression. And I was in complete denial. I'm like, this can't be happening, because I'm so upbeat normally. Like, what's happening to me? And so I come from that really deep, I don't wish that on anybody to go into the depth that I was, because that was a 5-year journey.
Mm-hmm.
And if had I known what I know now, it might, I would have definitely gone a little faster, because I was trying to seek help and no one really could help me. And there was just this inner turmoil and yearning that it's just hard to put words to. But what ended up happening is I got inspired. Something outside of me sparked a piece of inspiration where I finally made the decision, like, okay, today's the day. Like, we're just turning this ship around. And it was, kind of like that. It was just like this snap, like, okay, we were going this way. We're like down in this pit and like, okay, it's time to go. And when I look back at all that whole thing, because it had to do with, the journey with my son and medical things, and really interesting story that took me on lots of wild journeys. But I look
Mm-hmm.
back at that, I'm like, what was it about all that what could I learn from that to help others go through stuff like that faster? And so I have a really deep mission, from a personal standpoint, from a family standpoint, and my business suffered during that time as well. So from an entrepreneurial standpoint, it's life that we all have to learn how to deal with. And I've come to a really strong place of power and understanding of how to, I like to say, like a duck on water. They just, they're just kind of graceful. Ducks are just out there just chilling, they're doing their thing. They look, they're always alert, they're always looking around, and they know what's happening, they know when to fly. But their feet are underwater paddling. They're paddling, like they're working, they're very alert. I like that analogy because to me that's what an entrepreneur, in my mind, is in the world. We're like the ducks of the world. We're like, we're
Mm-hmm.
looking all calm and cool, we're doing some cool things, but we're also like really humming, and all the resistance when people get into this turmoil with other people and outside forces and inside forces, it's like water off a duck's back. I like that
Mm-hmm.
analogy for so many reasons. Does that answer your question today?
That does, and I want to dive in a little bit deeper because that speaks to me as well. Like, was there a point where you realized when you first started with that you were in that deep place? Was there something specifically that got you there, or I mean, we know it got you there, but was there something that you realized, like, I'm in this dark place now? Because for me in my life, I got to some dark places as well, but I didn't realize I was in them until a few years later. So, was there a moment where you realized, like, hey, I am in a really dark place right now. I need to start making a shift. Was there any point that happened for you in that situation?
It was honestly people coming to me. They were looking to me and saying, Ange, we think you need some help. we and I had many people come to me just say, Ange, just take the drugs. We want you back. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're gone. Like what, just take the drugs and just get back. And I'm like, I just knew I just knew that wasn't my path. And I knew I had to find a way to resurrect it within myself, because I truly believe that we all have an internal power that is stronger than we realize. And to access that has been a big mission of mine, because it's different for everybody. It's a different journey,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a really worthwhile one to discover. And so I sensed that things were off, and I knew I didn't use the word depression, but things were off, and I knew it, and I didn't know really how to get out of it. Because I was just in denial, like this can't be happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like really, this isn't me. But when other people came to me and said, "Hey," and it was like, okay, okay, here we are. What do I do? What do I do next? And that's when I just really went on a journey to try to figure out what can I do next?
Yeah, that's a good point because a lot of times we don't see what's in the other side of the mirror until we have others actually look at us and actually give us that impression and give us their point of view. So sometimes it's good to have friends around us. But then again, that point and the next point is saying, when they want the quick fix, they want you to take those pharmaceutical drugs, which you didn't do, which is amazing that you actually were strong enough to push yourself through that. And then what was it? My next question is, was it a point where you made a shift? what was it in your mind that triggered you to be like, okay, the time is now to start leading myself in a different path, to start getting myself out of this depression or this low state, this dark place? Was there a specific time or event that caused you to do that?
Yeah, there was. And it's a very personal story. Because when you're in a place that dark, the eyes just go inward. You're just so self-focused. And even though I was still operating in the world, I was running my business, living life, going to the grocery store, like I was functioning, but not thriving. I was definitely feeling in survival mode. And my son was 5 years old. It was time to send, actually he was 4. I had dragged my feet sending him to preschool. I'm like, I don't need to send him to preschool. I don't need, we're doing fine here at home. I was a stay-at-home mom. And I really felt God speaking to me deep in my soul. I just heard him say, send him to preschool, which was not what I wanted to do, but I really heard that strong voice. And so I'm like, okay, let's send him to preschool. That is what started this for me, because he did not fit in well there. He was completely fine at home, but around other people, he was not. And so kindergarten was right around the corner. I'm like, there's no way the teacher's going to hate me. Those kids are going to hate me. Those parents will be calling me if I send him there, because he's just not, the way his nature was, he was not comfortable and able to function, like the other kids in that environment. And so I knew that. And so I had to take my eyes off myself and focus on my family and my son, and like, what do we do to get this in that? And fixed would be a word that I probably would have used back then. Like, how do we get this? How do we resolve this? How do we fix this? And that got me eyes off myself, and I had to do so. I had to move. I had to.
Yeah. And that's amazing that sometimes it takes us to start, like I said, looking at ourselves, helping others to get ourselves back up to that level. So getting back to, how you help individuals and entrepreneurs get unstuck and be unstoppable in their business. How do you do this? Like, how do you go about doing this? Do you have a process or some process you go about greatness?
I do. And I've really invested a lot of time thinking about this and studying this. And I've studied under so many different mentors and books and conferences, and I've come up with a really neat process that to me, it's meta, because you go through it once, you learn quite a bit, and then you go through the whole thing again. And they all as I go through this, there's 3 main steps that really work and layer on top of each other. And the first one is commanding your power. How do you command that power? How do you live from that place? To me, it's a place of peace. In living from your peace is your power. That's ultimately what what's interesting, that journey with my son, we drove miles and hours and went to all these different specialists and hospitals and therapists, and like, oh my gosh, we were all over the place trying to fix. And finally one day, this was like years of this. Finally, one day, my son just said, I'm done with this, because we just spent hours and money, and like, it was just my mission to help get this resolved. And finally, one day he just said, I'm done with this. And it was like this, this layer of peace, like, this is what it means to like really come back to your power. Because I was putting all the power outside on all these other specialists, when all along the power, not that any of that was bad, but too much focus there. And when the power really is inside of us and inside of him. And that was a really visceral experience for me, to understand that the peace, when you come to that peace, knowing that, okay, let's just breathe a minute. And really just, again, I really tune into spirit, and learn what that means. And that's what I ultimately guide people to do as well, is like really the answers are inside of us. And if we cannot get ourselves to that place of peace, that then we're missing a whole layer of wisdom and information that is very invaluable to our lives and our business. If we're just scattered and resisting and like, chasing, we're missing a whole layer of wisdom. So that's the first piece, is just getting to that place of peace. That so commanding your power, and then the structure, creating that to me it's a creative structure versus I was doing that whole problem solving thing, like, what do we do to fix this business that's falling apart now because I'm focused on the family, and like, how do we, just focusing on all these things, versus let's stay in the creative mode, and what's the ultimate prize here. And it's a big challenge I see in the entrepreneurial world, because there's so many shiny objects and we could be focused on one direction, and a challenge will pop up, or an obstacle, because that's what happens. And, you can't get away from any of that. And then we can easily lose focus, just like me in that depression. That was heavier than me, being able to run my business and my family. It was weighing me down more, until I made that decision, like, okay, we are sticking to, family first. The business, will come along. We're making it work. So it's staying in that creative structure is really critical. That was, and especially critical for me in that scenario as well. And then that third piece, and this is interesting because it's going to sound so simple when I say it. And it's so simple that it doesn't pierce the consciousness. And a lot of these concepts are so simple. Success principles. As humans, we make everything so complicated. At least I do. And when really there's simplicity to all of it. And the third pillar to me is having true choices. Having a true choice and not resolving how you're feeling inadequate, or how you're missing the mark. It's or solving a problem, or focusing on a process. It's what is your true choice? What is a true choice for you? And I go through a whole segment. I mean, it's amazing how deep that subject can get, because what ends up happening again is we lose our power, and we're not in that creative structure. And so now we're making choices based on the way we feel versus, what's the real goal here? In the book, Think and Grow Rich, I believe they told the story about Henry Ford. I always love this one. It's so simple. And he reminded himself every day, twice a day, I'm building the car, the best car in the world. I'm building the best car in the world. And you would think he'd remember, I'm building the best car in the world. You'd think that would be obvious, but that every day he reminded himself, we are building the best car in the world, with the best car on the, and that's a success habit of, as leaders, that's a big success habit of leaders, is constantly reminding, the visualization. There's a whole thing that goes behind all that. Self-leadership, leading ourselves so that we can lead our company, our teams, and the people in our environment. So that's this, it sounds simple, but there's so much depth to it. It becomes really fun to explore that. And I just love being able to boil all the noise, to me it's noise, all the noise down to those three really simple, very meta, because they all circulate together.
Yeah. And I agree. I think a lot of times that the most successful things that we create are simple, right? But us humans, we often like to complicate things. I don't know why, but we all do it. And it's all like the KISS model. Keep it's very simple, super simple.
Yes.
So I definitely agree. And I like how, with all your 3 points, is the first is it's finding yourself, finding that inner peace, right? And then 2, creating that structure around your goals, that focus. And then the last one is actually leading yourself, right? Creating that structure and finding those choices that you want to actually start moving on. So really simple, but very powerful. And even for my community, my lead up community, we do the exact same 3 steps, exactly the same 3 steps of how to actually become a leader. So that's
Mhm.
amazing that we're on a line in that area as well. So as we go into that, and I know no one things are very simple, but also it's a lot of people who aren't doing this, right? What do you think
Yes.
holds people back from achieving these goals?
Oh, we get in our own way. Oh my gosh. What for me, and I see this with a lot of clients too. For me, especially, my big thing was, who am I? Like, I was losing my identity. Like, I don't even know who I am anymore. Who am I supposed to be? Who am I supposed to be? And when really the real question is, who do you want to be? Like, who are you? Like, just make it up, like, create it, do it, go. And we get confused in our society. We beat ourselves up. That comes from all sorts of childhood things. And I'm not big on going on deep dives and witch hunts and because that's all interesting. But again, let's keep that creative focus and let's go for what is the true goal they're going for. But we get in our way with the identity thing, and then what does that mean, and what do I really believe, and what are my values, and not landing on an actual decision around all that. That's a big one that holds a lot of people back. Especially I see a lot of this nowadays is burnout. People are working so hard, trying so many different things, especially as entrepreneurs, with all the uncertainty, which is always, and there's always uncertainty, every year there's
Mm-hmm.
always something like, and then we tend to like focus on all these things and like, no, this is just life. Let's
Yeah.
calm down and like, stay focused here, because people are pushing. They're not, again, not grounded in that power, their own personal power. They lose focus on those creative choices and the true choices. That structure is all off. And then they're on the verge of burnout. Those are two big ones that I see.
Yeah, I definitely see that a lot across the entrepreneurial world, even in corporate America. So many people don't realize who they are. If you ask someone who they are, they're going to say, "Oh, I'm an engineer, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a scientist," but they don't really know the true person who's inside of them, not just what they do, but who they are. So
Yeah.
I think that's a big one because a lot of people just start drifting and start floating away and getting lost in the work or lost in all the different tasks and, oh, I need to go run this challenge, I need to go promote this object, I need to sell this one, I need to be at this conference, and they're doing all these things over here, but yet they don't understand, like you said, who that person is on the inside. And when you're constantly floating away and going from event to event, or challenge to challenge, or trying to sell, or trying to create this class, this master class, a lot of people, you say, hit that burnout, like you said, like they actually just get burnt out because they don't have that balance or that inner peace that really is actually getting them to where they want to go. So those are two great points. But is there anything else that you said that holds people back from achieving their goals? Is there anything else?
It's interesting because I grew up as a young adult in that personal development world, as I mentioned before, really heavy in personal development. And I got to a point and I looked back because I saw like coliseums filled with good people trying to
Mm-hmm.
go for these different things that they were promoting. And why is it that so many people are here with this desire to succeed and to do these big things in the world, but yet there's only a few people on stage? Like, what, and it just, it hurt me. Like, what is happening here? And we were strong leaders within that community. And, so we had a lot of people in our nest, so to speak, that we were mentoring through all that. And it got to a point where it's like, what is it? And it wasn't until I got away from it and was able to look back in, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's some big gaps in the personal development industry, I believe, that
Mm-hmm.
um, I like to address within my programs, because the shaming, for one thing, there was a lot of shaming. It wasn't outright, but it was this underlying well, you need to be further along than you are. And this whole what's wrong with you thing that I kept running up against. And it's part individual, like that comes with the human nature. And I think it's amplified in those environments and not dealt with properly, because again, those three pillars, they're not properly teaching how to walk in peace, how to stay creative versus the problem solving, and and then the whole thing on choices. That's a whole mind-blowing thing. I just a lot of teaching that.
Yeah.
And then there's all these tactics and strategies and keeps people busy, and you can Google all this stuff, but people don't take the time and do that real deep dive and really understand for themselves. This is who you are. That power is in you. That power is in you. And to be able to harness that and pull it out is the brilliance of what I do. I'm remembering a story. I feel like I need to share this. I had the chance. This is a crazy story. I met the world record holder for the longest plank pose, and
That's tough.
I didn't
Oof.
even know what that was. I'm like, what? There's a world record for this? Like,
Yes,
but
that's
how
tough.
long? And so it was funny because we were talking about it in class, and everyone's, oh my gosh, he held this plank for like 5 hours or something crazy. I'm like, what? And come to find out, because he was the manager at I was a personal trainer at the YMCA in our local community, and he was the new manager. And so there's all these rumors. And so in his office, he had the trophy, 9 hours, 9 hour plank. I forget, 9 hour and 1 second or something. I don't know, but it was a 9 hour plank. It wasn't 5, it was 9. And I'm like, what? And so he came to our YMCA to build the next world record. And so I helped him through that. It was a really, really cool process. And so he made some classes that I was able to be trained by him. And our first class, I will never forget it. This talks about personal power. Because most people, can hold a plank, 20 seconds, maybe a minute, like 2 minutes, like why bother going any longer, right? Like who really
Yes.
does? And so when you hear like 9 hours, like that's just, even 5 hours was nuts. And 5 minutes, I mean, I never even thought, it didn't even cross my mind to do a 5-minute plank. In that first class, it was a 1-hour class, he had us do a 5-minute plank. I had never done one before.
What?
I had never done one before in my life. And he had us all do a 5-minute plank. And here's what he said. He said, you don't have to hold the whole time. I'm just going to put the timer on, and at 5 minutes, I'll turn it off. And so he said, just go up and down in the plank poses many times as you want. No big deal. Just, take your time, go up and down. And I thought, well, I know I can do a 3-minute plank. I just never bothered to try to go any longer than that. And I did a 5-minute plank 3 times in that hour.
Wow.
It blew my mind. The power that was in me, I had no idea was there. No idea. And so that's what that experience drives me to, because I know people have power inside of them. They're not harnessing. They don't know how to get to it. They don't know how to access it. They get in these dark places. They don't know how to get out. There's all these things that we just talked about that just light me up to be able to share with people and just pull that out of them. And just, this world needs all of us entrepreneurs to shine, because we're all here for a purpose and a mission that only you as an individual are here to achieve. And I applaud that in everyone. That's where my tagline came from. I honor the awesomeness in everyone, because it's there. I know it's there. So
I
thank you
definitely
for
agree.
letting me share that. That was a fun story.
I'm glad to hear it, because it's funny you say planks, because I'm planking is probably the hardest thing for me to do. Being 6'6" and trying to hold that position for a while, it's just like one of the most hardest workouts I can do. And I've been pushing myself to do a minute, sometimes a minute 30, trying to get to that 2-minute mark. But the fact that you're able to get to 5 minutes 3 times in one workout is amazing, because really harnessing that power. And you mentioned a point earlier saying that we go to a lot of these conferences. I've been to so many conferences throughout my life. You name them, I've been there. Big conferences, hundreds of people, thousands of people. And you're right. What's the difference between people on stage and people that's in the seats? Is that the fact that they're able to harness that power to actually get them there and actually focus on those goals and actually do what's being told and not just listen to it and be excited and then go home and do nothing. So you made a good point, harnessing that power, and I think that's why you're able to help so many people to do that, and why so many people actually, to tap in with you and see how they actually start harnessing that power, how they are able to start actually tapping into that inner peace, the inner foundation of their lives to achieve those goals in the next level and watch their lives just change. So I want to thank you for that because it was awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing that in the future as well. So what should listeners do next?
Well, thanks for asking. I actually have a masterclass that would be a great next step for your listeners. It's called Inspired Life Live. And it takes people through those pillars in a deep way so that and it's a live event. So we go deep. There's a Q&A involved all along the way so that people can get their questions answered specifically so that by the end of those 4 hours, won't even recognize yourself. You will have the pieces, the exact steps necessary to rise up out of whatever it is happening in your life, and just level up and take that next obvious action step that's going to move your life and your business forward. And so that's inspiredlifelive.com/lead up is the website to go to. www.inspiredlifelive.com/lead up. That'll get you to that masterclass. And it's a deep dive. It's definitely a lot of fun. And it's the live version. I love the fact that people can actually they're not just in the stands listening. Like we are interacting, getting their questions answered so that my goal by the end of that masterclass, you are on, you know exactly what to do next and there's no question. So that would be the next best step for your listeners.
I love that. So for everyone that's listening right now, if you want to start pulling that awesomeness out of yourself, tap in with awesome Angie. She is the woman that's been doing it for 25 years. She's an expert in this field, and I'm super excited to be partnering with her in this journey. So if you're wanting to if you're feeling stuck as an entrepreneur, if you're feeling that you want to get to that next level that you haven't been able to crack past that certain level you're at right now, and want to tap into your awesomeness, awesome Angie is the woman for you. I'm looking forward to her wonderful masterclass. So I'm super excited about that as well. So make sure you guys jump in the link. And if you have any more questions, feel free to comment below and we'll be able to answer those so we can get you into that masterclass and that you don't miss out on this awesome opportunity. So Angie, I'm super excited for that's coming up. And I want to thank you for your time today. I'm looking forward to that masterclass.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. Appreciate it.
Likewise. Thank you.
Yeah, keep being awesome.